Should we go ahead and get started? It's a little bit after 6, and I hate to keep those who are here on time waiting. So welcome everybody to the Healing Power of Plant Foods cooking class. Glad you're here once again. We've got familiar faces, and I want to welcome those at home who are watching on Zoom. And before I forget, because I usually forget, those of you who are at home that don't have the recipes, feel free to email me at health4lifecooking@gmail.com. The 4 is a number 4, and I'm happy to send you the recipes for tonight. Unfortunately, I can't email samples of food. Next time you'll have to come. So I'm excited to have you here tonight. I love to teach about the healing power of plant foods and how it can drastically improve your health and increase longevity, decrease your risk of disease, and help you to achieve and maintain your ideal weight. And it's the most powerful tool. I taught a class last month specifically on heart disease, and as I was kind of refreshing my notes on heart disease, it's the only thing that has been shown to be able to reverse heart disease. And that's powerful. It's been proven many times since way back in the early 50s, I believe. And we're still doing it today, and it's powerful medicine. Food is powerful medicine, and I like to show people how to make meals that are based on whole natural plant foods taste really good, because this is not about being deprived. We don't want to go into a diet style. I like to call it a diet style, not so much a diet. It's just a nutrition style, diet style, because this is about doing this for the rest of your life. It's not a diet you go on for a week or two. It's a commitment to eat a really healthy, whole food, plant-based diet, whether that is vegan, vegetarian, raw food, although I don't advocate a 100% raw food diet, but I just encourage people to eat more. This is about abundance. This is not about getting rid of things, although there are things that are good to get rid of or greatly reduce. This is about abundance. We want to eat more. We want to eat more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and nuts and seeds, and get as much of that in as we can and make it taste great, because that's what I know I love to eat, and I don't want to sit down to a meal that I don't like any more than anybody else does. So we got to make it taste good. So tonight we've got a Mexican menu. Super excited about this menu. I did it for my community education class last week, and it went over very well. I love Mexican. It's my favorite. And so I wanted to do that again for you tonight. And we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off with my burner here. And I'm going to put it on about medium-high. And I like questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to speak up or raise your hand. And a lot of times those questions remind me of things that I want to talk about, because I like to talk about the foods and what they're good for, what they do for us. And we're going to start off, as I start off most of my meals, most of my recipes, with an onion. We've got this yellow onion, and you can use any kind of onion. Actually, the onions that are the most nutrient dense, that have the most antioxidants, are the purple onions. I do use those occasionally. I use those more during the summertime when I'm making a lot of salads. Love the red onions in salads, as well as green onions or scallions. But I stick to, when I'm cooking, I usually just stick to the yellow onion, the cheaper of the onions. And these have powerful compounds, powerful organosulfur compounds that decrease inflammation throughout the body, decreasing risk of heart disease and stroke. They also decrease risk of cancer. Onions have the most powerful effect against cancer, and in a large European study involving 10 countries, people that ate the most onions had the least cancers of all types. And that was dose dependent, meaning the more onions you ate, the less your risk was. And I'm just going to chop this up. And by the way, the more you chop, the more you activate those compounds. So that onion, before you cut it, you don't even smell it really. But as soon as you start cutting it, those organosulfur compounds start reacting, and they start working together and talking to each other, and they wreak havoc on your eyes if you're sensitive, if you don't hurry and get that in your pot. And I'm not sure why I'm chopping this by hand, because I've got this great Vidalia chop wizard that I love, and I forgot to grab it. So I know you guys have all seen it here tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and grab that and use it for my other part of my onion. Yeah, when you've got this, No more tears. You can chop it super fast. You can get these at Bed Bath & Beyond. You can get them online. You can probably get them other places. That's the only place I've pretty much seen it. And I think Bed Bath & Beyond, I've heard, will take it, like if you buy it and it breaks, they'll take it back within a certain amount of time, because they do have a tendency to crack on the bottom here. I mean, I had one that lasted me for years, so it's not like they break easily. The trick is pounding on it. Don't be careful. You want to just slam it, pound on it. I'll be using that a little bit more. I need to get me a wooden spoon. All right, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. I don't have anything in my pan other than the onions. I don't have any oil or any broth or anything in here, because I like to show how you can saute without any oil. I don't use olive oil ever. Oil is 120 calories per tablespoon of pure 100% fat. It's the highest calorie, lowest nutrient food that we consume, and it increases weight gain. It increases risk of heart disease. It slows blood flow 40% within 4 hours of consumption. What about olive oil, the Mediterranean diet? People are so healthy. The reason people in the Mediterranean are so healthy is because they eat lots of plant foods. They use a little bit of olive oil, but they use lots of plant foods. You know what you can get for that 100 calories of oil in that tablespoon? You can get a whole pound of greens. I know that's not very exciting if you don't like greens, but you got to learn to like greens. You could eat, a serving of fruit. You could eat a sweet potato for probably a little bit more than 100 calories, but you're going to get a lot more nutrients and a lot more energy to your cells out of this potato than you are a tablespoon of olive oil. The problem with a tablespoon of olive oil is it goes right to your belly or your fanny where you don't want it, because it's called free oils, and those free oils are absorbed into your body very easily, very efficiently, and very quickly. When you eat an olive or an almond or an avocado or a walnut or a pecan, you chew that nut and it takes hours to break down and for those oils to get into the cells of your body. And some of those fats from those oils don't even get absorbed into your body. They go out, they are bound to the fibers from the whole food, and they go out into the toilet bowl, which is a good place for them to go. And when you're eating free oils, they know right where to go where you don't want them to go. I'm just going to chop a little bit of garlic here. Garlic has those same compounds that onions have. In fact, they're even more powerful. And so I'm not going to totally saute this forever without anything in the bottom of it, because it does start to stick a little bit. And so when it does, that browning is just the sugars from the onion starting to caramelize. So what I'm going to do when it starts to stick, I'm just going to get a little bit of water and pour it in there, and that'll loosen that browning up. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in my garlic, and that's 3 cloves of garlic. All right, and you just kind of want to keep an eye on that. Make sure you don't get it burning. You can just keep adding a little bit of water. You can add some vegetable broth, balsamic vinegar, soy sauce tamari, or something like that. All right, then we're going to move over to our veggies that we're going to add. This is a vegetable bean burrito. And I had this recipe. This recipe is not actually mine. Most of the recipes I do are mine. But this recipe comes from Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He's a board-certified family physician from New Jersey. He teaches the Eat to Live program or the Nutritarian program. And I have a handout up there from him. One of them is about G-bombs. And he talks about greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, how they're the most powerful anti-disease foods that we need to be getting into our diet every day. And then the other handout, actually I think that's the only handout I have of his. But anyway, he teaches the Nutritarian diet style, which is a high nutrient diet. Lots and lots of vegetables. So this is a recipe from him. And I looked at it. I love Mexican food. So I looked at this recipe for burritos and I was like, oh, first of all, before I move on, I have most of my carrot chopped. I just wanted to show you how this will chop a carrot, but it's good to slice them. Slice them lengthwise and then chop it. I don't know if you noticed that they were sliced lengthwise first. Yeah, I was looking at this recipe. I wanted to try it, and I thought, vegetable burrito. I saw the vegetables in it, and I thought, how in the world could that possibly be good? Because I like a bean burrito. And so I had this recipe for quite some time, and finally I decided to dig it out and try it. Totally loved it, and have added broccoli and cauliflower to my Mexican food ever since. Because when you chop it up, like I have done here, you don't even hardly know what's in there. Okay, we need to turn that heat up just a little bit more. All right, and we'll let that cook just a little bit. Get those carrots cooked. I'm going to add just a little bit of water, a little bit more water. Carrots are one of those foods, along with celery, beets, artichokes, even onions, I believe, that you can cook. You can't cook them too much, and that's because, like a carrot is really hard when it's raw, and when you chew it, you know, you're not breaking it down unless you really concentrate on breaking that carrot down and chewing until it's basically liquid. Then you're probably getting a lot out of it, but most of us don't do that. We eat a raw carrot, and we're not getting all the nutrients out of it. But when you cook it and soften the fibers of that plant, you're increasing the bioavailability of those nutrients by, I don't know how much, but by a lot. You're getting a lot more from it when it's cooked. Juicing, of course, you're probably going to get a little bit more. I'm just going to add a little bit more water to that, and I am going to put the lid on that for just a second and move over here to my pot of water that I have right here, and this is going to be my soup, and I'm just going to get that going. And we're going to go ahead and chop up the onion for that soup. I'm just going to soften that carrot just a little bit before we add the broccoli and cauliflower, because the broccoli and cauliflower, it doesn't need to cook too much. It cooks up really quick. And I'm using a white onion for this one. When I was packing everything up, I realized I didn't have 3 onions like that, which is what I usually use. And I had this one. I found a recipe online for a curry carrot soup, and it called for a white onion, so I bought it to make that soup, and I haven't made it yet. So I'm using it for this tonight, because I didn't have 3 of those other onions. All right, we'll just dump that in our pot over here. Turn that down just a little bit. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and add the rest of the vegetables to our burrito mixture here. And it calls for 3 cups of chopped broccoli and 3 cups of chopped cauliflower. And I chopped everything in the Vidalia Chop Wizard. I chopped most everything. I'm going to go ahead and just do a little bit more. And I don't really cut this down too far. I just break it off into florets and just lay it on there and chop. Same with the broccoli. And the more you chop this, the broccoli and the cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable, and they have special compounds. You've probably heard of sulforaphane. It's a phytochemical that's powerful against cancer. And the more you chop those vegetables before you cook them, the more you activate those compounds, kind of like the onion. So it's actually really good if you can chop them and then let them sit for a little bit. I don't know if you've heard about that with garlic, how if you let it sit on the counter for like 10 minutes, it activates the compounds in the garlic that's so beneficial. It's kind of the same thing with cruciferous vegetables. Your cruciferous vegetables are kale, collards, broccoli, bok choy, arugula, watercress, Brussels sprouts, Chinese cabbage, turnip greens, beets, or not beets, radishes. Anyway, so the more you chop, the better. So I like chopping it up fine, and it gives it that kind of crumbly texture, so it mixes in really nicely with everything else. I'm going to go ahead and this is the broccoli and the cauliflower. By the way, these little stems right here that you pull off the broccoli and throw in the garbage, I know I used to. This is, if you know about sulforaphane and the powerful compounds that is, there's 10 times the sulforaphane in these little leaves than there is in actually the broccoli stalk. So don't throw those away. Chop them up and put them in your food, or just eat them while you're chopping up your veggies. A lot of times I'll do that. I eat them, or I give them to my dog. My dog stands there in the kitchen and while I'm cooking, and I'll throw her little pieces of broccoli and cauliflower, and she totally eats it. Like, good girl. All right. She knows what's good for her. And I'm just going to cut down some of these little pieces. Went through the chopper and didn't chop real fine. I don't really like having big chunks of broccoli or cauliflower in my burrito. Although it softens up nice and kind of breaks up anyway. So we've got 3½ cups of each, 3½ cups of broccoli, 3½ cups of cauliflower. So I talked about cruciferous vegetables. Women who eat 1 cup of cruciferous vegetables a day cut the risk of breast cancer in half. Men who get 3 servings of cruciferous vegetables a week decrease risk of prostate cancer by 64%. Again, that's cruciferous vegetables. Greens, of course, are, they reduce your risk of heart disease, reduce your risk of diabetes. Greens keep your blood flowing very smoothly through your arteries. In fact, I didn't talk about the endothelial function that is greatly decreased when you eat olive oil. Your body produces nitric oxide from the cells inside of your blood vessels, and it keeps your blood flowing very smoothly, kind of like Teflon on a skillet. And when you eat olive oil, it slows that blood flow 40% within 4 hours after eating. And green vegetables produce that nitric oxide that is so important to keep your arteries flexible. So that when you go up a flight of stairs or when you go out for a run and your arteries expand, you can see when somebody's working out in the gym or is off for a run, you can see the blood vessels in their arms, how they kind of poke out. That's that nitric oxide production that's making that happen. And you don't want to make your arteries stiff, and that's what oils will do. Okay, I'm going to add some mushrooms to this. Mushrooms have aromatase inhibitors that keep estrogen levels low. We want to keep estrogen levels in our body, both men and women. We want to keep that low because estrogen actually increases risk of cancer. I'm going to just pull that off to the side. I'm not quite ready for that to be cooking. Cancer cells need a blood supply. Angiogenesis is what it is when there's a blood supply, when your body's producing blood vessels to make you grow. When you're a child, you grow, and you've got lots of angiogenesis going on. But when you stop growing, when you're older, like us, we don't grow unless we cut ourselves or break a bone or we have some kind of surgery and we need to grow new blood vessels, then we have angiogenesis. But when we have cancer on our body, we don't want that going on. So mushrooms they're anti-angiogenic. They keep those blood vessels from growing, cancer cells from growing. They have 22 proteins that lower cholesterol and blood pressure at the same time. Mushrooms do. Okay, we're going to add some seasonings to this. We are going to add, first of all, 1 tablespoon of Mrs. Dash Extra Spicy. And you can use any kind of Mexican seasoning you want. They have a Mrs. Dash Chipotle that I love, but I really like this extra spicy one, and it's not too spicy, I don't think. And I add a tablespoon of that. And then we're going to add our other seasonings, which is 2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of basil, 1 teaspoon of oregano, and 1 teaspoon of parsley. Some seasonings you wouldn't normally find in Mexican food. Except for the cumin. Love cumin. Such a flavorful herb. Or spice, I should say. It's more of a spice. Well, as I was saying that, I was like, oh, what's the difference between a spice and an herb? I'm thinking an herb is, when I think of herbs, I think of leafy greens. Cilantro and parsley and basil and those. And spices, I think more along the lines of like seed spices, like something that you'd grind up, like cumin seeds. But I'd be interested to look that up and find out exactly what that is. what the difference is. Okay, that's starting to smell so good. Okay, this is all we're going to do as far as what we're adding to this vegetable mixture. I'm going to add just a little bit more water and put the lid on and let that finish cooking for a minute. Okay, we're going to go back to our soup and we're going to add some sweet potatoes. So one of the main things with the way I cook and the recipes I'm doing, it's not so much the recipe I'm teaching, it's the concept of adding vegetables to your burrito. It's the concept of adding a sweet potato to your soup to make it creamy rather than adding cream, which is very heart disease promoting, diabetes promoting. We want to get rid of dairy products if we can, as much as we can. So anyway, I'm going to chop up, I've got about 12 ounces of white sweet potato or yellow sweet potato. And I'm just going to slice these thinly, about 1/4 inch thin. And you could probably just chunk these up if you didn't have a chopper. But I like using the chopper on it. It cooks them very quickly when you cut them down small like that. Sweet potatoes are super, super healthy. If you only eat them at Thanksgiving, I encourage you to start eating them all throughout the winter. They start getting really good about January, and they're sweet. I have them for breakfast every morning right now. I put some cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, and make it like pumpkin pie. Tastes so good. They're amazing, and they give me so much energy. I'll like bake a pan of, I do the orange sweet potatoes. I like these, but I do the orange ones because they're higher in nutrients, and I actually like those more for breakfast, the pumpkin pie idea, but I'll bake a cookie sheet full of them and take some for breakfast, and then I'll have some just kind of as a snack. I can't eat those at night. Like after dinner, I kind of want a little something sweet, but if I eat too much of that, I'll be up because it gives me so much energy. I'm serious, it's crazy. Love them so much. Okay, I'm just going to add that in there, and let's see if we need to add anything more to our soup. I've got our onion, and we're going to add the garlic to it. So let me see, make sure that is for that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add our garlic. I think it's 2 cloves of garlic to the soup. They're the Okinawans, Japanese traditional Okinawan diet, and a lot of people over there are still eating that traditional diet. Their diet is like 65% sweet potatoes. So, and they do great. Their disease rate is super low.
Jamaicans too.
What's that? Jamaicans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Usain Bolt, that's all he eats.
When they were growing up, they camped by the truckload.
Really?
Jamaicans, yeah.
Have you guys ever tried the Japanese sweet potato? Natural Grocer sells it. They're purple and they have a white. It's whiter than this. The flesh is whiter than this. They are like candy. I mean, they're better even than the orange sweet potatoes, except they're like $2.69 a pound. So you pay quite a bit for one potato. It's kind of my once a week treat because it's so good. Okay, so let's see. We've got our potato in there. So we're just going to let this cook now and just let those potatoes get soft. I got to find a lid for that pot. There we go. And we'll check on our burritos. And they're getting soft. Whoops. Oh. I always forget that handle gets so hot. Okay, I want to make sure that, oops. I want to make sure that that is nice and tender. Turn the heat down on that. I'm gonna have a little taste. Okay. I think I'm gonna turn off the heat and put the lid on and just let that stay hot for a minute. We're gonna move over to, let's see. We're gonna move over and do our cookie because I wanna get those in the oven so we can get the burritos in the oven too when the cookies are done. Okay. So we're doing a walnut chocolate chip cookie tonight. I firmly believe that a good whole food plant-based diet deserves some healthy desserts. However, my desserts are still very rich, pretty high fat, high sugar content, but they're much healthier. So I encourage people when they're making them to make sure you've got lots of friends to share them with. Because if you're like me and like treats, you want to eat the whole batch because it's healthy, right? So we're going to start off with same type of ingredients we do when we're making a regular cookie recipe. We're going to start off with some sugar, and this is in date form, whole food form. Dates are whole food. All the parts of the plant are still there. Nothing's taken away, nothing's added, just whole food goodness. The fiber is still intact, which means you're not absorbing all the calories in the plant, because some of that fiber goes right through you, right? And then we're going to add some fats. We're going to add some walnuts to these, half a cup of walnuts. And again, the fats in those walnuts, some of them are bound to the fibers, so that you're not going to absorb all the fats that are in the walnuts. And if you don't like walnuts, you can use pecans. But I don't think you really taste it that much in here. And then the original recipe called for actually a cup of walnuts, and then I decided I'm going to try to cut the fat in these a little bit. And have you ever heard of black bean brownies? Well, these are garbanzo bean cookies, except they're not too many garbanzo beans. But I'm using a half a cup of chickpeas or garbanzo beans in place of that half a cup, the full cup of the walnuts. So if either way, if you love walnuts and you want to use a full cup without the beans, if the beans kind of freak you out a little bit, that's weird in cookies, you know. But they work very well. And then we're going to add, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and grind this up first for a minute. Just a little bit. Now those dates they're small pitted and they're called Deglet Nor dates, and you can get them at Costco. They say they're pitted, but when you take them out and I soaked them, I didn't mention that. You want to make sure all the pits are out, number one. And then what I had was I had them soaking in a half a cup of water. That's going to help soften the date and help it to grind up a little bit better. And I just soak them for about just a few hours before. And you don't have to soak them. They just, like I say, they just grind up a little bit better when you soak them first. So we're making our buttercream. You know, when you do cookies, you need the butter and the sugar. That's kind of what we're doing here. Kind of works in the same way. Then we're going to add our tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and our baking soda. Tablespoon apple cider vinegar. Teaspoon of baking soda, not tablespoon. And that vinegar and the baking soda kind of become activated and are going to help these cookies to rise a little bit. Then I add a little bit of vanilla. And then I'm going to grind this some more. And then I'm going to add in my flour, which is oats. I'm going to use rolled oats. This is 1.5 cups of rolled oats. And that's it for now. Super easy cookie recipe if you've got a food processor. And if you don't, what you could do is blend your dates and your water and your wetter ingredients in your blender, and then grind down your oats in a coffee grinder or in the blender before you do the wet stuff. You do the wet stuff first, and then you're going to have the oats sticking. You got to let it dry out first. All right, and then we're going to pour in our chocolate chips. I just got about 1/4 cup of chocolate chips. Chocolate chips aren't necessarily healthy. Cocoa is healthy. Cocoa powder, cacao. Chocolate chips, they've still got the oil added and the sugars added, but that's why I'm just adding a little bit. And I like to use the smaller chocolate chips because they get dispersed throughout the cookie a little bit better, so you feel like you're getting more. And this is actually quite a bit. Quarter cup is quite a bit for this recipe. It doesn't make a ton of cookies, which is kind of a good thing. And you can always double it if you wanted, or just make 2 batches because it's so easy to make. And we'll just give it a brief mix again. All right, that looks just like cookie dough, just like real cookie dough. So we're gonna just move some stuff out of the...
Around the rolled oats in a coffee grinder, so it's more like a flour, or did you just put the oats in?
You could ahead of time if you wanted. Like if you had a food processor that wasn't real strong and you wanted to do like your dates and your liquid ingredients in here and then grind your oats in a different, separately, and then just dump them both into a bowl and mix it, you could do it that way. And then I'm just going to take my cookie scoop and scoop them onto my cookie sheet. And I've got this lined with some parchment paper, which is such a great thing to use. That way you're not using oils, which if you didn't have parchment paper and you needed to use a little bit of oil, I think that would be just fine. But parchment paper is so handy, so easy to clean up. And because there's nothing really bad in these cookies, like, you know, that would go bad or make you sick, like with eggs, you know, you don't want to eat raw eggs, you could lick the bowl and not have a problem. In fact, you could just keep these raw if you wanted.
There's no liquid in this.
Yes, I soaked the dates in 1/2 cup of water. So it softened them up and added that little bit of liquid. So if you didn't want to soak your dates, if you have a good food processor and you don't need to soak them, what you'd want to do is grind your dates and your oats and your nuts probably together, and then add the water at the end with your apple cider vinegar and vanilla. I'm running out of room on my cookie sheet here. And you don't even need to spread these apart because they don't really spread. They're not gonna expand like a traditional cookie. I'm gonna keep some of this dough actually, and you can try it raw. How's that? Does that sound good? Everybody likes cookie dough. I know I always did.
My dad went to a Catholic high school.
Uh-huh.
And they served, when they cookie in the morning for lunch.
Uh-huh.
And they, for 25 cents, they could get cookie dough batter.
Oh my gosh.
They went and started school.
Yum. So these need to go till 6:45. Can somebody set their phone or something? Or just 6:45. I got a clock right here. I just don't want to forget. I get wrapped up in doing stuff and I forget what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add the beans to our vegetable burrito mix here. And I'm going to add 2 cups of pinto beans. And I went to pull some pinto beans out of the freezer. I'm actually going to add the rest of these. I had to use canned because I went to get my pinto beans that I've cooked from scratch out of the freezer, and I had no pinto beans. So, and it takes me about 24 hours to do the pinto beans because I soak them and then I cook them in my crock pot. So luckily I had some canned. And it's okay to use canned beans. You don't need to soak your beans and cook them yourself. You can just use canned. They're totally fine. I'm a bit of a purist, and I saw my grandma soak beans and cook them, and that's just kind of how I do it. But canned beans are just great. Just rinse them really good to get a lot of the sodium off if you can, and the preservatives that might be on it. And you'll be good. Okay, we're gonna make the sauce, the cheese sauce for this. How's our potatoes doing? I'm gonna check these potatoes and see if they're done. They're probably done. I'm loving this soup. I'm not a huge creamy soup fan, but I'm loving this soup. So we're just gonna put that off to the side. It's about done. Okay, so the sauce for this is super, super easy. It's just cashews and water. And I've got those cashews soaked in a half a cup of water. Actually, probably a little bit more than a half a cup, and I'm probably going to have to add just a little bit more to that. We want to keep it fairly thick. I need to rinse off that spatula. So these are just raw, unsalted cashews. And I need to add just a little bit of water to that. Okay, that is it. So all of our flavoring for this burrito is in the cooked vegetables. We're just going to add this cashew sauce. Now, why are we not using just regular cheese? What's wrong with regular cheese? It's super, super high in saturated fat. There's a reason why you can set it out on the counter and it stays in a block. It's super high in saturated fat. It plugs your arteries up, increases risk of heart disease, increases risk of diabetes, increases risk of all sorts of things. Juvenile diabetes, constipation. Good way to get constipated is to eat a lot of cheese. That's one thing I said I would never get out of my diet because I loved it so much. Once I read about it and you know what it is, I mean basically milk is the mammary secretions of a cow that just gave birth. So that milk is supercharged with hormones, and it signals your body to grow, because that's what cow's milk is made for. It's made to grow a 600-pound calf into an 800 or 1,000-pound mammal, full-grown cow. And that's some powerful growth hormones. And when you eat cow's milk in the form of cheese, you're getting a very high concentration of fat. You're getting that animal protein, which increases risk of cancer, literally grows cancer. Plugging up your arteries. I mean, that cholesterol that they pull out of your arteries, it's plugging at 100%. It's cheese, basically, a big part of it. And animal fat. Okay, I wasn't going to talk about things that are bad. I don't do that. I like to talk about things that are good for us. Okay.
Nutritional yeast?
We
tinkered with that. We don't know too much about it.
Yes. Yes, you could totally put nutritional yeast in there. That is a flavoring. Nutritional yeast is a flavoring that you use when you're doing a cheese substitute. I don't think it needs it in this, but if you really like it, you could totally add it. It has a tendency, I know it's got a little bit of a tendency to cause headaches for people. It does for me, and so I got rid of it years ago and kind of just got used to not using it. But it's a really yummy, I mean, I've gotten people off cheese with nutritional yeast because it has that cheesy flavor. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to this, about a teaspoon or a little less than a teaspoon. And once those cookies come out of the oven in 4 minutes, I'm going to, well, I guess I can go ahead and roll these up right now, because by the time I get them rolled up, that'll be ready to come out. So the tortillas I'm using tonight, and I've actually done this with a corn tortilla and done it like enchilada style, but originally there's supposed to be burritos, so that's what we're going to do tonight. But I'm using an Alvarado Bakery sprouted grain tortilla. Is anybody here gluten-free and would rather not have the tortilla? I mean, there's going to be plenty left over. If I'm just going to wrap, let's see, there's only 5 of you here, so I'm just going to wrap up. I'll wrap up 3 and cut them in half, and you can each have a half. And so, yeah. Yeah. These are very clean. They are sprouted organic whole wheat berries, organic whole wheat flour, filtered water, sunflower oil, which is not great, but it's a small amount, sea salt, and sunflower lecithin. So really clean, very clean. You're getting only, huh?
Where did you get those?
These I got them at Natural Grocer. For those at home, Alvarado Bakery. There's also one called Food for Life, Ezekiel tortillas. They are heartier and wheatier than these. So if you think these are wheaty, try your Ezekiel. I don't like the Ezekiel ones for burritos. I do like them for wraps. They don't wrap very good. You gotta heat them a little bit. They are good. They're great with hummus and tomato and or a tostado. Yeah. Yep, they're good that way. Okay, let's see. I need a scoop of some sort. Here we go. Oh, I'm also, okay, so these burritos, you could just take your burrito and fill it up, wrap it up, whatever, roll it up, put a little sauce over it and eat it, okay? But what I'm going to do tonight is do a little bit of I'm going to heat them in the oven just because they're better that way when they're heated a little bit. So I'm going to you've got a recipe on there for chili tomato sauce, and it's basically just blending all the ingredients. So I wasn't going to demo that tonight, just to kind of simplify things. So that's what this is, the chili tomato sauce. Super easy, really good. People seem to really like this, this tomato sauce. You can use it for a enchilada sauce, is what I usually use it for. So I'm just going to put that on the bottom. Pardon me? Oh, cookie time is up. I'm going to check them. They can go 10 to 12 minutes. Actually, we're going to go just a couple minutes more on those. They're a little bit soft. Okay, then I'm going to set that right there. And we're going to take our veggies here and just fill up a shell. I usually fill them way too much. And I'm not a very good burrito wrapper. And we'll just do, let's see, what was I going to do? 3 of them. I'll do 3 of them. And I'm doing about a cup. You can fill them as much as you want. More in there. All right. And then we're going to put a little bit of this on top. You guys didn't know you were getting dinner tonight, did you? When there's only 5 people, it's easy to feed you. You guys at home are missing out, I'm telling you. Okay, these are going to go in the oven. We're going to let those be in there just a little bit long. They were pretty soft.
30 seconds.
Yeah, we'll let those go. They're still a little bit soft. Should have been more like 10 to 15 minutes probably on those cookies. Okay, we're going to do this. I'm going to get the Spanish rice, or the Spanish rice pilaf going real quick. Put that back there. I almost forgot about this. And once again, we're going to use the chopper. So I wanted a super, super simple meal that you could, that you could just throw together really quick. And this is one of these that I love. I have this probably once a week at least. This rice pilaf, because I love rice, I love Mexican food, and it's a super easy recipe. And we'll put our onion in there, and I'm going to do the same thing with this and not use any oil. And while that's heating up, we're going to go over to our soup over here, and what I'm going to do with it is transfer the potato, onion, garlic, and sweet potato into the blender jar. I'm going to take that out first. I blended that one time. Not a good thing. I've discovered that this sweet potato is a really nice way to cream anything. A creamy soup or cream. I've even used sweet potato. I don't know if you guys came to my holiday class where I did a pie and used part sweet potato and part cashews to make like a whipped cream for a pumpkin pie. Super good, super easy. Cauliflower is really great to do a cream as well. Let's see, I need that. So a great way to cook your vegetables is in the soup, because you're not getting rid of any nutrients. All the nutrients go into the water. I've talked about some studies that were done with 5 different ways of cooking, and one of them was boiling. And the nutrient loss was significant, but it was all in the water. And so when you cook in water, you are greatly reducing the amount of nutrients that you're losing. Okay, so I'm going to add some garlic to this. And I'm just going to add a little bit of water, let that onion cook for a minute while we jump over to our blender, and I'm going to add 2 cans of tomatoes. Now, I don't love using canned tomatoes. In fact, I prefer to not. When I can get the palmy tomatoes that are in the paper or the cardboard boxes on sale, because they're usually really expensive, but you can get them on sale, so I'll get those and I'll load up on them. I'm surprised that there's not more companies that make tomatoes in either bottled or those cartons, because tomatoes out of a can, I don't know if you guys have heard about the leaching of the metal in the tomatoes. It's not good to eat metal. But it's kind of one of those things, it's like, what do you do? Bottle your own is what you do. I got some tomato plants ready to go in my garden, so hopefully they'll do an abundance. I'll have an abundance in tomatoes and I can bottle some. Okay, so once those, pardon me? Oh, the cookies. Thank you. They're probably good. They're probably perfect. They are perfect. A little bit toasted, a little bit brown. Thank you for reminding me. And then we're going to put the enchiladas in, or the burritos in too, in the oven. In fact, we are going to, well, no, we'll leave them in there like that. That will be okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the broccoli in with this. This is chopped broccoli. Again, we're getting lots of broccoli in tonight. I've done kale with this, and I was tempted to use the kale, just to have something different. But I prefer doing, when I'm doing the rice pilaf, or Spanish rice pilaf, I prefer to do the broccoli because it's kind of crumbly and it mixes nice with the rice. It kind of keeps that crumbly texture. Kale does not do that. Kale is really good in this, but I prefer the broccoli when I'm calling it a rice pilaf. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of water, about a half a cup of water. Then I'm going to just put on the lid and turn down the heat to about medium and move back over here to my soup. And I think we've got everything in that soup. Where's my recipe? Let's see, everything we need for now anyways. The tomatoes, we'll go ahead and put our seasonings in there. We've got a 1/4 teaspoon of chipotle chili and a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And you could use just regular chili powder if you want. I'm just loving this chipotle chili. I'm like using it in everything instead of chili powder. But feel free to spice it up. You can use the Mrs. Dash Extra Spicy or the Chipotle combination seasoning or just whatever. You could turn this into a Italian soup and do Italian seasoning with basil, fresh basil. We're going to do cilantro tonight. Okay, we'll go ahead and blend this up. Okay, and then we're also going to add just a tablespoon of maple syrup, and this is just to cut the tomato just a little bit. And so this is the way, if I'm going to use a processed sweetener, maple syrup, turbinado sugar, which is the less processed dry sugar, this is the way I use it, just a tablespoon or two to kind of kick up the sweetness that I can't quite get with dates maybe. So you could use dates. You could actually cook some dates with the potatoes and stuff. It would probably work just fine, in fact, even better. But I don't mind using a little bit of like maple syrup. That is actually a tablespoon. And then we're also going to put in some cilantro. And this is actually probably a little bit less than a 1/2 cup. But we're going to put that in there and just briefly, ever so briefly, just blend that right in there. And we don't want it to turn green, so we're just going to chop it briefly. There we go. Yum, yum. Just want to double check that. Okay, we're going to pour this back into our soup pot. And I'm going to just have a little taste to see. Let's see, I don't think I put any salt in there, which I do a little bit. We'll just go with about a quarter to a 1/2 teaspoon. I don't know how hot that is. Can I see the steam coming off it? Mmm. That's so yummy. Okay, I'm going to just do a little bit of water in here to kind of rinse the blender so I can get every drop. Put that back on the burner just to heat it up a bit. It's not real warm anymore. Oh, that goes right here. There we go. All right. Okay, we'll finish up our pilaf here, and we'll be set to go. So to this, I'm going to add some seasonings, and I'm going to use the chipotle chili powder again on this one. But we're using a half a teaspoon of turmeric. I like to add turmeric to, I add turmeric to a lot of things. I do a salad at lunch where I add some cooked vegetables. I add some turmeric to that when I'm cooking the vegetables, just because those anti-inflammatory properties. And the anti-cancer properties, turmeric's a super high nutrient spice, and so I like to add that. So I'm going to add that right here. Adds a nice yellow color too. All right, I'm just going to let that cook for just a minute. Let's see, I think we are about ready to go. I'm going to check the burritos. They are looking good. Any questions regarding any of the recipes? We good?
Not a question, but it's something we've been working with. Store-bought veggie stock tastes better. It's kind of pretty muddy if you don't. Soy sauce, garlic powder, cumin maybe, a little bit of salt and pepper. You got any other ideas?
You know what? I don't use veggie stock for that very reason.
Okay.
I just feel like it's pretty bland.
Awful.
And you have to add, you still have to add quite a bit of salt. So what I do, the question was about veggie stock. I don't know if you guys at home heard that, about buying vegetable stock. The problem is you buy a package of vegetable stock that's, what, $3 or $4 probably, and you end up having to spice it up a little bit because it's pretty bland. So what I do is I just use water, and I increase the sodium a little. I mean, I make sure I salt it enough to make it taste good, and then I just increase the spices and the herbs a little bit more, instead of forking out the money for that.
Using veggie stock instead of olive oil to grill with stuff a little bit, so not always, but it does help a little bit, but I start having to add stuff to it just to get some flavor.
Yeah, it's pretty. I find the flavor in it is basically the sodium in it. If you get a high sodium one, and you kind of want to stay away from anything that's too high in sodium.
I've never made any homemade veggie stock. It looks like it'd be good, but we just don't, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, you know what I do, and it doesn't make a lot of vegetable stock, but when I think about it, I'll get a pan and just put the pan on my stove if I'm chopping up a lot of veggies. Instead of throwing them in the garbage, the leftovers, I'll put them in that pan, cover it with water, and I mean that's a super simple way to do it, Although sometimes I'll drain it off, put it in a jar, put it in my fridge, and a week later I'm like, oh, I forgot to use that. It's got mold growing in the top,
Put it in the freezer, and then you clean out your freezer, sure, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. But if you can think to use it, it's a great way to do it. Okay, I think this should be getting done here. I'm going to find a little piece to taste. And I like to have my vegetables fairly soft. There's certain recipes that I like a crisp, tender vegetable, like in a stir fry. Usually Mexican food, I like the vegetables a little bit softer. And you're not really decreasing the nutrient value that much. In fact, kale, they did some studies with kale. They boiled kale for like 10 minutes and tested the power of it boosting your immune system, the immune system boosting ability of the kale. It was more after it had literally boiled for 10 minutes. So again, you're softening up those fibers and you're making those micronutrients much more bioavailable. So you're not losing that much. In fact, I heard one report with Dr. Michael Greger with nutritionfacts.org. I think he talked about it in one of his videos about how the nutrient loss is only the amount of it's like 14%. And so you just eat a little bit more of whatever it is that, eat more broccoli. And that's a great message, right? Eat more, like I said. Okay. Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. Okay. We're going to add more tomatoes. We're going to add a can of crushed tomatoes to this. And a little bit of water. And I'm just adding that water just again to clean out the can, and it could use a little bit of water anyway. You can also do cauliflower with this. I've put this in I'm putting the rice in as well. I'm going to put in about 3 cups of cooked rice, and this is short grain brown rice. Grains are good for you. They are so good for you. You know, there's people out there writing books about grain brains and wheat belly and all that kind of thing. In fact, I just heard Dr. Pam Popper, if you're familiar with her, she has the Wellness Forum Health back in Ohio, and she's online, does videos and stuff about every day except for Mondays, if you go onto YouTube and look her up. But she was talking about the guy that wrote, I think it was Wheat Belly. There's Wheat Belly and Grain Brain, and I think it was the Wheat Belly guy. She said her and her team wanted to go delve into this book and find out and do the research, go to all the references that he quoted and see if there was any validity to it. They couldn't find anything. Nothing correlated with what he was saying. And it was like a New York Times bestseller, you know. So her point was, you know, you can find good news about your bad habits anywhere you look. So, but grains are a good habit. Grains are super healthy for you. They give you energy. They're high in B vitamins, high in carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates if we want energy. If we're on a low carb diet, we're on a low energy diet. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I love to, you can put some beans in with this if you want, but a lot of times I'll just leave it as is. In fact, I've put this in a burrito before. We're going to stir in some cilantro, about a half a cup of cilantro, and I don't really want to cook that cilantro very much, so I'm going to just turn that right off. And that soup, I can hear it. I can hear it boiling. It's hot. Now it's too hot. All right. All right, let's get a spoon to serve that up with. That's a really hot. Careful with these pans, you guys. They're really hot. I'm going to let you serve yourself. We'll put the soup out here. Where's that other hot pad? Pull those burritos out. And I'm going to cut these burritos in half. I know they're quite large, but I'm sure you guys can handle it, right? And if you don't want the whole half, you can cut it even further if you want. These look so yummy. Let's see, we're gonna put this out here. I don't know where my other hot pad is. So we're gonna just do that kind of thing. Okay, if you guys want to come up and serve yourselves, that would be awesome. And I've got a little bit more of the sauce. I'll put it over here, and you can try it separate or put a little bit more on or whatever you want to do.
So if I cook this way, can I have all these different pots going on at the same time?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I don't cook this way.
Okay.
I cook either that or that. This I would probably cook with maybe that or with the burrito. I wouldn't have just this. Unless I threw in some beans and some rice, which I have actually done when I've had leftover soup. I'll do some beans and rice and like the you know, that pilaf and pour it over it or just add some to it or something. So.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Let's see, I'll get our cookies out.
So we're gonna eat the burrito with our finger?
No, you're not. There's some forks and spoons right there in the glasses.
There's no knives.
Oh, well, if you need a knife, I'll get you a knife. Didn't even think about knives.
Well, I'm thinking we might have to cut
You might need to cut it, yes.
Oh, I see.
Let me, or I'll get you a cutting knife. If you need to cut it up in little. Do you want to do that?
I'm gonna come back for the soup when it cools off.
Okay, yeah, the soup is really, really hot.
I'd rather have it out.
You bet. Do you want a half or a whole?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. There is another knife. I didn't even think about that, you guys. So those who are at home, are we still on with Zoom? Those of you who are still home or are at home, I hope you're able to make it to this class next time. Again, if you want the recipes, it's health4lifecooking@gmail.com. My website is healthforlifecooking.com. Lots of recipes on there if you want to go there. And hope to see you next time.